Hello, BookTube. I've got a bit of mail for you today, a couple of periodicals and a couple of packages on an absolutely gorgeous spring day. Just beautiful. It's not too cool, it's not too hot, it's not breezy, there's no weather, there's no rain or wind at all. Just absolutely lovely. Started off wonderful. Started off with a nice long wake-up walk where the bean needs to walk it off and get back to alert status. And then I went to the Brattle Bookshop first thing. Because I had a viewer of this channel who was in town and wanted to see the sights. And the Brattle is a great place for a bookish person to go, but it's only magnified if you go with me. So, of course, I went to introduce this person to the Brattle and see what was what and look all around. That was a lot of fun. Got back in a nice, timely manner. Walked the Little Bean again. Nice and long walk. Nice, beautiful walk out in the neighborhoods. Just lovely. The slightest possible hint of rain tomorrow or the next day, but I doubt it's going to happen. I really don't think we're going to have any weather here for any conceivable amount of time. We got two periodicals, and the first periodical had a connection to the Brattle. I smiled when I saw it, when I got back and saw it, because the Brattle this morning had not only that big hardcover anthology of 150 years of Harper's, an American album, but also boxes and boxes of old issues of Harper's Magazine from a century ago. Just in perfect condition, just all sitting there. They're not going to stay in perfect condition. They're going to be out in the sun and the wind. Maybe they get caught a little bit in the rain before the doors can be closed. Maybe get handled by people. I saw those in those boxes this morning, and I thought, somewhere out there's a collector who just doesn't know these are here, much less that they're $5 a piece. Or they would swoop in and get them all. But I got back here and Harper's was here, so, and I'm sure I haven't read this yet. I'm sure that it will be of interest. But the main thing that will interest me is Joy Williams writing about Kafka. There's a long piece on Kafka. I'm actually wondering, is it the new Selected Stories? Is that what she's writing about? Yes, it is. It's the new Selected Stories translated by Mark Harmon. Yeah, it's that she's doing. I have that volume myself. I really kind of liked it, and should be writing on that. I know that I should be paying attention to the rest of the issue as well, and I will. And then the other periodical is the TLS, the London Times Literary Supplement, with who's doing this? Corin Throsby and Catherine Sutherland are writing on a whole bunch of new Byron books. So that'll be a lot of fun. I know I always go to the letters page in the TLS because the TLS likes ongoing disputes or discussions. The one that's going on the longest these days is on a question that doesn't really interest me all that much, but maybe you have something to say about it. I don't know. If you're of a certain age, the question that's been going back and forth here is whether or not somebody, Jim Severance, wrote in a review back in March that in the 20th century, only rich people sent their laundry out to be done. That was a mark of economic well-to-do status. And they've been peppered with letters of people saying, no, we grew up in dirt poor circumstances, we still send our laundry out. And they're letting it go. They're wanting to hear from everyone, which is terrific. So I'm curious to know how long that's going to go on. The letters page of Harper's also had something that was of interest, something that I may or may not have written about myself, about J.R.R. Tolkien. There was an incredibly condescending piece about Tolkien and about how he's being embraced by the far-right faction in Italy. And Harry Kunzer, who wrote the piece, decided to put on his imbecile's hat for that day, and heavily implied throughout the piece that the reason the far right in Italy is embracing Tolkien is because what else you'd expect with a quasi-Nazi like Tolkien. And naturally, I bridled at that. And I was happy to see that someone else did as well. So, someone writing from Atlanta says, while I appreciate Harry Kunzer's overview of the Italian right's co-option of J.R.R. Tolkien, I wish he had made it clear that it is a co-option. Tolkien was not politically aligned with the Italian fascist right. Indeed, he was an English conservative and a Catholic. His politics have been likened to those of William Cobbett, an English pamphleteer and working-class advocate. Tolkien fandom in America, moreover, seems to have had a more left-wing constituency. It would have been fitting for Kunzru to include these caveats, since his article implies that the Italian right's reading of Tolkien is a natural result of his work. And here, the writer mentions what I also mentioned when I wrote about this, which is that Kunzru pulls out the dumbest, woolliest lollipop in the whole arsenal by quoting Michael Moorcock about Tolkien. He says, Kunzru's quoting Michael Moorcock's well-worn critique only adds to this misimpression. It's also unfortunate that Kunzru engages in the more than tired trope of attributing Tolkien's works to a youthful folly best outgrown. I also railed about that. Kunzru heavily implies in this piece that you only read Tolkien when you're a kid, and then you grow out of it. And then the letter writer finishes up. C.S. Lewis, a friend of Tolkien's, wrote, quote, "When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to grow up." Can't help but agree. So let's look at the mail. Let's do these 2 packages, and then we'll be done. I'm still mentally debating whether or not to try a Steve stream tonight. I tried a live stream last night, and it froze. I had to just abandon it because the technology just gave out. I have no idea why. No idea. I didn't do anything different. I don't know whether or not to try that again tonight. I probably should. All right, so what have we got here? This is coming out in June. This is by Alejandro Nodarse. It's called Blood in the Cut. Pretty good cover. Yes, pretty good cover. I don't have a sheet for this, so we'll just read. Oh, no, it's all blurbs on the back. Let's read the inside here. Iggy Guerra is out of prison, but his homecoming is anything but smooth. His beloved mother is gone, his grief-stricken father Armando is in debt, and they are about to lose the butcher shop that has been their family for generations. Iggy must earn his father's lost trust in order to save the shop from the threats imposed by a new rival business, a vigilante activist, and the big game hunter Oren, who has dragged Armando into his dangerous money-making scheme deep in the Everglades, where more than secrets are buried. Iggy will wrestle with the beauty and danger of the place he calls home as he tries to save his family without losing himself forever. Blood in the Cut opens into a deeply personal vision of the streets and swamps of Miami, where the roots are crooked, but as strong as mangroves. Boy, oh boy, that sounds good. Jeez, that sounds really good. That's June. Who is Alejandro when he's at home? Dare we read his biography? Holds an MFA from the University of Miami. That's a good program. And is an alum of Las Dos Brujas Writers Workshop and a former independent bookseller and staff member of the VONA Writers Conference. And this is his debut novel. How incredible! How incredible! A gorgeously designed thing from Flatiron Books as your debut. And it sounds really good, too. Fantastic. All right, well, that Blood in the Cut, that comes out in June. Bean, what are you doing, Bean? What are you doing? And then let's do this second one, since Her Majesty is getting restful. Let's see what the second one is. It's in one of these asbestos envelopes that I try to handle them lightly so that I don't shave time off my 28 years. Let's see here. Okay, is this a paperback reprint? This has got to be a paperback reprint. We've already seen this. Yeah, this is new in paperback. Okay, so in a week, this comes out, or no, in late May, this comes out in paperback. This is Stephen Vladeck. This is his book, The Shadow Docket. How the Supreme Court uses stealth rulings to amass power and undermine the Republic. I don't want to be blocking the baby, now do I? I think we saw this last year. But this is going to come out in paperback. For those of you who wait for paperback, I asked that question in a recent video. How many of you wait for paperbacks? Even of books that you really, really want. You just wait for the price to go down by $10. Quite a few of you emailed me and said you do. Just routinely do. In fact, some of you keep spreadsheets so that you are reminded of what you liked and what you're looking for in paperback. Let's see here. From abortion to religion to guns to immigration, the U.S. Supreme Court plays an outsized role in virtually every debate in contemporary American political culture. Every year, the court hands down dozens of high-profile rulings that receive spotlight attention from the media. Hidden in plain sight, though, is a part of the Supreme Court's work that is no less important in shaping the lives of all Americans, and that in recent years has become far more important, the so-called shadow docket. Righteous, rigorous yet accessible and updated with a new preface covering the shadow docket's recent decisions. Okay, but are you going to tell us? Are you going to tell us what the shadow docket is? For those of you who don't know, for those of you who are not Supreme Court junkies, baby, what is the matter? What is the matter? Hang on just a second. We have yet another Frida crisis going on here. No, you can't do that. No, you can't do that either. No, you can see that's not going to work. There we go. There we go. Okay. Okay, here we go. Yes. The shadow docket is a term coined by University of Chicago law professor Will Baude in 2015 and is meant as a catch-all for the rest of the Supreme Court's work, the thousands of unsigned, unexplained orders that the justices hand down each year. Some of these orders are entirely anodyne, but some are critically important, whether in granting a last-minute stay of impending execution, freezing the Biden administration's COVID vaccination or testing rule for large employers, refusing to intervene in challenges to the 2020 presidential election, or lifting a lower court block of Trump administration immigration policies that effectively ended asylum at the southern border. And yet, because these orders are handed down at all times of the day and night, are usually accompanied by little or no reasoning, are unsigned, and are often couched in technical legal terms, they are, or at least they have been, practically inaccessible to lay audiences. And this book writes all about that from an author who lives in Austin, Texas. So this is now out. This will soon be out in a trade paperback, The Shadow Docket. So drawing attention to the fact that the Supreme Court knows perfectly well that 10 of its decisions in a year or 2 of its decisions in a year will make international headlines and will be in every news cycle. But it does a lot more business than that. It just doesn't do it as high profile, and maybe sometimes that's very much intentional. It's the Supreme Court's highest profile ruling in its history is going to come down in right about the time this book comes out in trade paperback, ironically enough, which is to invalidate its own existence and put a target on its own back. Because the Supreme Court is going to rule that Donald Trump does enjoy presidential immunity, something called presidential immunity, which doesn't exist. It's a total fantasy. There is no precedent in law or anywhere in any country that hasn't been overtaken by a junta. Nevertheless, when the Supreme Court they took the case, and the only reason they took it when it is absolutely black letter law absurd is because they intend to rule on it. That's the only reason they would take it, is to say, they're going to say that Donald Trump, and only Donald Trump, does enjoy something called presidential immunity. So it is not enjoyed by the current sitting president, and it's not enjoyed by any other living ex-president. And it's not going to be enjoyed by any other president in the future. Just this one guy has it. And the country's going to convulse. It's going to go insane. But what the court has learned from overturning Roe v. Wade is that they're still going to be able to go to their country clubs. They're still going to be able to drive home at night and watch TV. Their world is literally not going to come to an end just because they do something that destroys the country, that gores or rips at the country. They're going to be able to do that with complete peace. And this is going to be the biggest thing yet, because they're going to rule in late May that one person in America is not actually subject to American law, and that everyone else is. Which invalidates the court, and invalidates 240 years of legal precedent, invalidates the whole reason for the country. They're going to do it. I don't know that they'll do it I think they'll probably sign their names to it and come out in public and whatnot. And there will be an outcry, the like of which the country has never seen. And what I'm hoping results from that is one of 2 things. Either state legislatures, state high courts, all across the sane and free parts of the country simply pass an ordinance saying we are ignoring the Supreme Court. We are going to ignore the Supreme Court from now on. Not just on this ruling, but on all rulings. The Supreme Court's authority is entirely created by believing in it. If state judiciary said, no, the Supreme Court of Massachusetts is now the Supreme Court of the people who live in Massachusetts. You cannot appeal to the Supreme Court in Washington, and if you do and they rule in your favor, we're going to ignore it. We are the law. We are the law in this state, and that's it. Because the court is rogue. Because the court is rogue. So we're not going to pay attention to them anymore. It's not a question of us disagreeing with them. It's a question of them handing down a ruling saying that one person in America is not subject to the laws of America. Well, no. So we're going to ignore them from now on. And I would imagine that if one state does that, a whole bunch of the other free states will also do that. Meaning that the only states in America that will call the Supreme Court's authority inviolable will be the Trump states. Which I know perfectly well. I know that is one giant step towards a civil rupture. An unbridgeable and unfixable civil rupture. That's one thing that could happen when the court says, this one guy, this one racist, sexist, fascist, lying moron does have presidential immunity. One step would be to do that, where the free states just say, we don't care about the Supreme Court anymore. And you live here, you pay taxes here, so you don't get to care about them either. You care about us from now on, but not them. And if you want to appeal to them in order to break the law in our Commonwealth, well, you can leave the Commonwealth and you can do it somewhere else, but you can't do it here. Or President Biden could do what he should have done 3 years ago, which is to add 10 justices. He hasn't done that. He has said a couple of times that he absolutely is not under any circumstances going to do that. It's yet another example of how badly you can be hurt by someone being an institutionalist. It's a good thing in a lot of ways, but it can be a very bad thing as well. Because he absolutely should. He absolutely should double the size of the court. He should pack it with sane people who don't know their jobs to Donald Trump. And he's not going to do that. That'd be another way to stop this from coming or to invalidate it. But the book, I saw that was a long detour, wasn't it? The book is still coming out in late May. The Shadow Docket. It's always worth learning about this sort of thing. It's not only for Supreme Court junkies. So we have that. We have a paperback release. That's interesting. I don't usually get paperback releases. And we have Blood in the Cut, an absolutely good sounding debut novel. It sounds really, really good. So I'm kind of tempted. I'm kind of tempted to get to it well before its time. It comes out in June. I'm still treading water on April books. I don't think I could justify it. But you never know. Anyway, I'll wrap up this contentious mail haul and I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.